Hey guys, today we're going to do something a little bit different. I had a gentleman by the name of Curtis Hutchins shoot me a message not too long ago and basically said, "Hey, I have some questions for you about what you're doing. I'd like to, run them by you and see if I can pick your brain a little bit." He goes, "But what I'd like to do is allow you to film it so that you can, post it on your YouTube or your blog or whatever, and maybe other people would have these same questions and they'd get them answered." I thought that was really cool that he was willing to think about other individuals, potentially having similar questions and learn from it, and also that he was willing to, I don't want to use the word vulnerable, but and that he was willing to throw himself out there and be on the internet asking those questions and learning some information. So I thought that was really cool. I obviously said yes because you're about to watch it. So this is mostly unedited, probably entirely unedited. Me and Curtis talking, just asking some questions. Full disclosure, I saw the questions beforehand, so I had a chance to at least know what I was going to say, or at least type a word and know that I was going to talk about that. And as always, I'm a little long-winded, but without further ado, Curtis.
We'll do 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. This is Dave Bray. I'm here with my guest, Curtis Hutchins from Seattle. And basically today we're just going to it's almost like a reverse interview where I'm going to post this, but he's asking me a whole bunch of questions. And then we're just going to talk and see if we learn some stuff about real estate investing. So how you doing today, Curtis?
Excellent. How are you doing?
I can't complain. I'm finally getting a day off, and it's sunny rather than getting a day off because there's a hurricane coming, which is great. So,
well, not too much of that in Seattle. I did grow up in Florida, though, so plenty of those there.
Yeah. This was very eventful for one island and not so much for the other islands. In fact, we kind of joked about it being Jumanji here because if you look at the Big Island over the last 6 months, they've had a volcano, they burned 107,000 acres in a wildfire over the last 2 months. The hurricane let a tiger out of the zoo. It's been we're basically playing Jumanji on the Big Island. And then Oahu has been fine. We got some rain. That was about it. So
nice. I heard about all the other stuff. I did not hear about the tiger.
Yeah. I saw that on I still don't know. I mean, I still haven't seen anything proving or saying they caught it, but it was a screenshot that somebody had taken and posted online of the Hilo News, website or whatever, posted a picture
right.
And the Hilo Zoo had so I feel like it's somewhat viable. Nonetheless, pretty funny whether it actually happened or not. Anyway, I digress. So, yeah.
Alrighty. Well, basically, just have a few questions for you. What I'm thinking is kind of walk through the process it's not quite that structured, but walk through the process of how you're finding deals. What makes up your time finding deals. When you find a potential, how are you evaluating that, and what do you look for? What do you look for, and what do you definitely look to avoid? So I guess one of the first questions I'll ask is the BRRRR strategy, and for a lot of us are familiar with that. I'll just, for those who are not familiar with it, that's it's buy, rehab, rent, and refinance, but it's a buy and hold strategy to where you rehab a property before you actually rent it out. Do you tend to use that a good bit more than buying properties as is and renting them out as is, or what's your preference?
So my preference. So my preference would probably be the BRRRR strategy. Unfortunately, to date, I've only done, I think, one that you could technically call the BRRRR, and I didn't even do all of that. So my wife, before we were together, she bought this house, and I joke about it. So somebody overdosed in the living room. They didn't die, but they overdosed and basically decided to move in with their parents or whatever. I'm not sure all of the logistics on that, but I know that the house was vacant for a couple months, and then it was on the market. And my wife jokes that at the time my in-laws have a barn that has a full apartment, and she was living in there because she just sold a house. And so it was right across the street. And she said at some point she would yell out the driveway, hey, make sure the agent tells you someone overdosed in that house. And So I don't know all of the story back in that, but I know that she got it for dirt cheap. And then my father-in-law used to build houses. So basically free of labor, they remodeled it. They added a garage, redid the roof, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it turned out very nice. And it's on 5 acres out in the country. And so they bought it and rehabbed it. And then she lived in it. And we get married. And I had done a house hack. And then we moved to Hawaii. And at that point, we thought about selling it. We thought about a couple different things. And we ended up, rather than doing a full refi, we took out a home equity line of credit on it. So same concept, just didn't have to put a new loan on it. And I kind of like the HELOC better, home equity line of credit, because it's like a revolving door of credit. I only have to pay interest on what I'm using.
Sure.
And then I turned around and I have used that money to buy a 10-plex and about to use the rest of it to hopefully close this deal that we're working on right now that's a lot larger. So through that experience and the fact that Burr has bought me one and potentially a second large multi-resident properties, I am a huge fan. It's just the area that I primarily invest in. It's kind of hard to find. Well, I'm not as efficient at finding properties that meet the criteria for a full-on Burr. So I do have a couple properties that are more or less just bought, put $4,000 or $5,000 into, and rent it out, and they still cash flow, but I'm not getting to pull my money back out just yet. So, the Burr strategy is awesome, and I'm looking to use more of it. As I was looking for more Burr type properties, I had this really crazy large multifamily kind of fall in my lap that I'm never going to get. Basically 4% interest seller financed, almost all of it. I'm never going to find a loan like that anywhere else. So it was like, okay, Burr's great, but this is just the funding on that is phenomenal.
Yeah. Hey, if the deal makes sense, the deal makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Although it's large enough that it scares me, but that's good, right? It's supposed to stay out of your comfort zone. So, so that's, I guess, my take on the Burr strategy. I love it.
All right. Awesome. Well, I guess move on to like how you're finding deals. Like, we talk about the funnel ways, the various ways that we can get deals coming our way. What kind of activities make up your funnel, and how much time are you spending on each one of those?
Not as much as I should. I don't think there's ever spent as much as you should. In fact, I joke about the fact that I have sometimes found myself doing enough blogging and YouTubing and trying to work on the channel that I then turn around at the end of the week and go, oh shoot, I talked about a whole bunch of real estate and didn't actually do any. I should probably make sure that I reevaluate my goals for next week. And that's a lot of times just because somebody's been hitting snooze the last week trying to recover from being gone for, a month or two. It's been a weird couple months. Anyway, and I figured out after a whole week of missing my 4 o'clock in the morning, I figured out that it's because my alarm was set on PM instead of AM and hasn't been going off at all. Because I have 2 and my cell phone doesn't really do anything. My actual alarm has just not been going off. And all week I've been like, how do I keep sleeping through this stupid thing? I don't understand. I've never slept through it before. I must be really tired. Yeah, no, I just had it set 12 hours.
I guess just figuring you being in the military, I figured everything would be on military time in your house,
Yeah, and unfortunately this alarm clock doesn't do that. But it's amazing. It's like it goes up to the decibel level of a smoke detector, and it has a little pad that you put under your mattress, and it shakes the bed. So it'll go off and it'll be like boop, 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 and you can't sleep through it at all. It's great.
I've got a 16-year-old that I got to get up for school coming up here. I might ask you afterwards how to get one of those.
I'll put a link in the video because that thing is. I mean, I've had it for 5 years, and until this week, I had never slept through it without at least knowing that I had woken up and gone, oh yeah, I'm going to make a conscious effort to snooze it. But nobody is watching this for alarm clocks, so I'm gonna digress to answer your actual question. It depends. So in Oahu, where I'm currently stationed, I do more of the wholesaling fix and flip type stuff. So I try to find a property that needs work. And so far I haven't taken one on my own, but I will then find somebody who either wants to partner on it or take the deal from me because just renting out here does not make sense. Buying a rental property, you pay $1 million and you might make $100 a month cash flow. That I could buy an apartment in Springfield that makes like another 5,000 on top of that. So no, does not make sense. So for finding those deals, I mean, driving for dollars is a lot of it. Just driving around neighborhoods and looking at driving around neighborhoods where I know kind of what the price point is for houses and looking for a house that looks like it might only have 2 bedrooms instead of 3, or vacant, or just not well maintained or falling apart. In fact, we actually were driving the other day. There's one house that like the frame used to be like this. And now it's like the whole house looks like this. There was still someone living in it apparently. I knocked on the door. They didn't want to sell. I kind of was like, no, there's a hurricane coming and your house is going to fall on the floor. So, yeah. So driving around, sometimes I'll knock on doors. Sometimes I will just write the address down and we have, my buddy and I do it. And we have like a little app. You can take a picture and it'll send a postcard to them, which is cool. But if it's a house that I think has a lot of promise, I'll make my wife write the letter because my handwriting is not as enticing. They say a female's handwriting entices somebody to open it more. I think it's just that they can read it. And then I joke about jogging for dollars, but I'm trying to get skinny again. I'm finally over all my injuries. So I'm trying to get back into running. And like today I was running through a neighborhood with my buddy and he looks back and I'm just like got my phone out, taking a picture of a mailbox and writing addresses down. I got 4 or 5 different addresses that I'm going to send a letter out today. He's like, come on, man, you're slowing me down. I'm like, sorry. I got to get this address real quick and then we'll go. So I do that, driving around neighborhoods and seeing kind of what's changing. On the Missouri side, so if you've read the book, The Long Distance Real Estate Investing by David Green, which I highly recommend, I use a lot of that stuff. And I honestly rely on my team. I have a phenomenal real estate agent, Tiffany. She actually is the reason this big deal fell in my lap. And I also have a phenomenal property manager who knows if a property she's managing is going up for sale, I want to be the first one she calls. And then she also knows the area well enough. And actually her daughter just became an agent now. So it's even more beneficial because now I have my property manager and her daughter who's an in-house real estate agent, and then my actual agent, and they will both kind of feed me deals that they think look good. And then I've been actually about to post a video about this, but finding wholesalers by having people try to buy your house. So like 2 days ago, somebody called me trying to buy the house that the BRRRR strategy we were talking about. And I turned it around and was like, great. Hey, no, I'm not going to sell you my house. However, and we talked for, probably 45 minutes about, he does lending on the side and just all this different stuff, talked about, our criteria. Does he wholesale? Do I wholesale? How can we work together? What areas? What do we, and I think we'll end up probably partnering on something in the future. So there's been a couple different people that I've done that with and gotten into a mailing list, and it's been either I saw their sign and called them, or they tried to buy my house and I said, no, but I want to work with you and I'll buy other properties you don't want. So I think that kind of leads into networking. And I have found you'd be amazed by what you come across by telling people what you're looking for. Example, this monstrous property thing that we're under contract on right now is way out of my comfort zone, but it's because I was talking about, hey, I want large multifamily properties, owners willing to sell or finance, or creative finance, or flexible on financing. And we found exactly that. So, except that I almost got scammed out of a $35,000 down payment by not being, long story, but basically it was a scam artist and not a hard money lender. And now I'm supposed to be closing right now. And instead I'm trying to find the last couple $1,000s to close the deal. So, it's a lot of fun. But.
Well, every piece of it isn't going to run perfectly, but that, kind of like you said with the networking, that your initial statement about the wholesaler made me think of something that someone we both pay attention to. Brandon Turner has said, I know he found an apartment building just by telling people, hey, I'm looking for an apartment building.
Exactly.
And, I think it's, anytime they say, anytime you have an interaction with somebody, you're wasting an interaction by not saying, hey, this is what I'm looking for.
I know. We just say, hey, what's up? Oh, nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
And then and I'm still guilty of that. I've listened to him and other people say that so many times, and I still catch myself. So now I carry business cards in my pocket at all times, and anytime I'm not in uniform, sometimes even in uniform. And then when I catch myself saying nothing, I'll be like, hang on. Actually, here's a business card. tell you why I'm giving you this. I try to make it like an almost exaggerated effort, but yeah.
Well, I'd say that wholesaler probably might have been just about as happy with the end of that conversation as he would have been if you said you wanted to sell the house. You know, I mean, that's a good networking interaction.
Probably happier because with the amount I have on the HELOC right now, he wouldn't have gotten any equity out of it if he bought it. It would have basically maxed out. So
nice. Well, I'll tell you what, when you find, like, let's say you find a property, what are some red flags for you?
Yeah.
Things that say to you, this is not, you know, and well, I'll just let you talk, but go ahead. And you know, what are big red flags for you as far as something that would keep you from buying a property?
I think part of that depends on the type of property. So if it's a residential, I'm more worried about the location and the look of the property and things like that. And can I get zoning to change this, that, and the other if I want to add? You know, if it's a 10 acre, can I split it into 5 acres and build a second house, stuff like that. That's not necessarily red flags. That's just scenarios. So on a residential side, not a whole lot of red flags outside of what would normally come in the inspection. And they will normally tell you with a big red mark, this needs to be fixed, and that's easy enough. I think the biggest thing for me on both residential and commercial is utilities. And I only say that because realistically, my answer to that would be integrity. But I feel like utilities is the number one thing that I have found that people fudge. So I almost wrote an offer on a triplex once, and then I called and verified like the third time. And finally I get through the utilities company to give me the information. I realize, oh no, the tenants don't pay utilities. The landlord does. He's telling me the tenants do. That's a $300 a month difference. And then the deal's not worth nearly what he asked for because it won't cash flow. I've wasted a lot of time on that. So it's almost always like at this point, if it's a residential property, especially, I will contact my agent, say, hey, this property looks solid. Can you ask him who pays utilities? And then she'll tell me the tenant, be like, great. Okay. Now I'll do my numbers. And then we'll write an offer. And then that'll be the first thing, like due diligence day one is send me your utility copy. So that for me has been a red flag just because I've been burned on it 2 or 3 different times with, the tenants pay utilities. And what they mean is like, I pay utilities, but the tenants help me out a little bit. That's
that's not tenants paying utilities.
Exactly. Yeah. If it's not sub-metered and my 10plex is not sub-metered, I pay all the utilities on that, but I knew that going in and the price still made sense. I would rather it be sub-metered and tenants pay utilities, but that's not a deal breaker. So, and then on the other side, I guess, so I wrote over here, false numbers, integrity, location. I'm really personally not a huge concern on location. If the numbers make sense and obviously with a C class, you might have to, for my 10plex is probably in like a B minus C plus neighborhood, and we're turning it around and the neighborhood's turning around. The house across the street just got bought and it's getting renovated. So the neighborhood's turning. But we're still in that stage where we renovated a unit and there was a dumpster there and somebody realized that we cared about the unit, and all of a sudden I have a queen mattress and bed set sitting in front of my apartment complex that wouldn't have fit in one of the 1-bedroom studios, but was dumped there because somebody was like, he'll move it. And so we had like a whole month of getting phone calls about junk that we needed to move off our property that was getting dumped there. Even factoring that into my expenses is still a better deal than if I had bought in an A neighborhood for cash flow. So if you have a good property manager, you're willing to deal with a little bit extra stuff. We've had some issues, but it's still going to be a solid deal. So the location is not a deal breaker to me. I think integrity, honestly, and that's something where if I'm dealing with a commercial property, especially where the numbers determine the value, if it's all wrong, even if the numbers still make sense, I'll probably bow out just because who knows what else is being misrepresented. I'd rather say it than lying, but
fair enough.
And sometimes it's just not an integrity issue. It's a knowledge issue. If I had bought my duplex as my first property and turned around and tried to flip it, I wouldn't know what the heck I was doing. So it's sometimes that try to keep an open mind and not burn bridges. But then, when you got someone who's got like 100 rental properties and they're trying to tell you something, you're like, you know what you're doing. And you like, that's No. So never know.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, when it comes to, well, actually, now that you said that you currently don't do much of the BRRRR strategy, one of the questions I had was how you're calculating ARV, but you're probably not doing a whole lot of that at this point, given your current approach.
Yeah.
Although
I generally just use a comp from my agent, or
sure.
If you know your area well enough, you can kind of guess. I know that's the wrong answer. Guessing is the wrong answer, but like in the Midwest, Missouri, like prices really don't fluctuate. A 3-bed, 1-bath, depending on location, is going to be anywhere from 80,000 to 150. That's, I mean, and you can know, like, what neighborhood, and you're like, hey, that's, so I really just go off what I know, past, present. The market doesn't fluctuate much there, so you can even pull Zillow past sold, and it's going to be very close. Or a comp for my agent. My agent's awesome. So that's my short answer.
Hearing you quote those numbers for a 3-bedroom in Missouri, I live in Seattle, and basically you could multiply that times about 9 or 10, and that would be what a 3-bedroom is here. So
just wait till you do. Don't ask me what I paid for the 10 unit. Actually, anyway.
All right. Well, once you've purchased a property, what are your main priorities in terms of getting it ready to go and taking it over? Like, is there anything, maybe, of course you're going to want to repair anything that needs to be repaired, but is there anything that you would add to a property, or any kind of renovations or things that you like to see, as far as like, what should be in a kitchen or bathroom, that sort of thing? Or you pretty much just go, if it's not broken, roll it as is?
So I guess LED lighting is kind of a big one for me at this point. Maybe not all at once, but I know that electrical is definitely the highest of the utilities costs, and it's not getting any cheaper. So a lot of times I'll mess with that. Realistically, the first thing I try to do with any property is, can I increase the rent? Can I add a washer dryer? How can I get more cash coming in out of this? And if there's a major expense, then I'll go from there. So like for the 10-plex, the guy was paying like $400 a month for garbage, and I got a quote for $150. And that was the first thing I did was, and we just saved $200 a month. But primarily I go for increasing rent much faster than I will go for decreasing expenses, because at the end of the day, $500 a month extra coming in is not as easy to get. I don't know. That's just my personal preference. I'd rather increase the top line and then work on decreasing the bottom line, because you'll spend money a lot of times to decrease the bottom line. Like LEDs, it costs a lot up front, but it'll be cheaper in the long run. Well, I'd rather wait till I have a little bit extra coming in to do that than to just do that up front when I could have increased the rent. So as far as items, furnaces is an item that I often find myself replacing right away, just because they're old. And you can buy a high efficiency, so you can pay like another $100 and you'll end up paying a lot less in utilities. But I generally kind of live by David Green, him and Brandon Turner are now co-host and co-host of the podcast, The Bigger Pockets. And David talks about upgrade hacking, and I use that strategy. So if a toilet breaks and needs to be replaced, I will take that. And if it's a $200 toilet to replace, I will spend $300 and buy the high efficiency one. But I would not spend the $300 on a high efficiency toilet unless it broke. So if you're going to replace it anyway, then I look for a more efficient way to replace it, because it's kind of like a mindset thing, I guess. So like $1,000 furnace is $1,000 furnace, unless it broke and you're going to have to buy an $800 one anyway. So then it's like a $200 difference to buy the super efficient version. So I just try to look at it that way.
Right.
Hopefully that answers the question.
Yep, absolutely. Tell me a little more about, because I know that you're further on than I am, but you're still early in your real estate journey.
Yeah, about 3 years.
What's that? About 3 years?
About 3 years.
3 years. So, a 10 unit is, or there's rather, not the 10 unit, but rather, how much is this apartment building?
Yeah, so this is right under 2.8 million.
Okay.
It's 67,000 square feet.
Wow.
Yeah,
so, how are you how does that come into play? Say, how's that come into play? I mean, it's quite a jump from where you're at right now to or where you've been at to get to something like that. So how'd that come about?
Yeah. So the 10plex wasn't too bad. Like I said, so the 10plex, and this will make you shriek, cost, well, we negotiated a bunch of stuff down, but it was $212,000. So yeah, I trust me, I know, because the median home price here in Kailua is like $850,000 for a 1,100 square foot 3-bed 1-bath. That's only got they call it, I forget what they call it. There's a weird, it's not single pane, but they have single walls. So instead of having drywall and fancy walls, it's a single piece of really crappy plywoody stuff that you can shape the walls in most of these older houses, and you and I could have all the doors closed and stand in the opposite room and have a full conversation through the wall, and you wouldn't know there was a wall there.
So almost like a manufactured home. Really.
Yeah. So they're super cheap quality, and they're still somehow $850,000 for an eighth of an acre, 3-bed 1-bath, 1,100 square feet. So that's why you don't invest in rental properties here. You do fix and flips, and then you fix the walls to be nice, and then it's worth a lot more. So you go to Missouri and the prices are insane. So this deal though, my agent brought it to me. It was off market. She found an ad. I don't remember if it was Craigslist or word of mouth, because she works down in that town. And basically the guy was saying, hey, I'm willing to either seller finance 80% or do a lease option and seller finance it's 92% at 4. And so it's going to be 4% interest for the first 3 years. The 4th year will go up to 5%. 5th year will go up to 6%, and the 7th year and above will go up to market plus 3%. But I will hopefully be refinanced long before that, with a 10-year balloon out, which is awesome because that gives you enough time to weather any downturns. And the 3 years at 4%, the first of that is interest only. So super affordable loan, especially at that, for that large of a property and that large of a purchase. And it has a lot of room to grow as far as some vacancies and stuff. So it has 20 residential units, 4 Airbnb units, and then a whole bunch of commercial tenants. It's kind of a strange building. It was really cool. And that literally fell in my lap because of me saying this is kind of what I'm looking for. And she saw something and said, here you go. As far as how I'm able to do that at this stage in the game, I have a partner on this one. We were both looking to put about 40 or 50,000 down. Unfortunately, to close now with that private lender disappearing, we're going to need to have another 100 grand. So we need to find that. So we need about 200,000. We've got 100 of it, without liquidating stuff that we don't really want to liquidate because we don't have to buy the property. But it is super out of my comfort zone, which is awesome. And basically at the beginning of this year, I told myself, I'm going to buy 3 rental units and that'll be my year. It'll be great. And then I read the book, The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. And I was like, great, we'll apply this. So instead of 3, we're going to buy 30 rental units. And so that's where the 10plex came from. And then things went well with that, and it was making some income. And we were like, okay, cool. This one came along, and it's like, well, that's another 20 units plus 15 commercial. That meets the goal. That's why not? The numbers worked. So that's kind of where we came from and where we're going with that. Hopefully, hopefully a year or 2 down the road when we refinance or sell, we'll be super stoked about how everything went down and how much we learned and how great this deal was, and not going, well, exciting. We learned a lot the hard way. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there's always that nervous voice in the back of your head, but seems good so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think that really speaks to the power of networking and letting people know what you are looking for. Because I think, if you were to ask me prior to hearing this story and everything, if it was even, thinkable for me to be looking at something of that value a couple of years from now and everything, I would still tell you, I'll be trying to find duplexes and that sort of thing. But I mean, like you say, this could end up being a life-changing deal really for you. So that's,
if the numbers work out, if we can get it fully occupied and the projections work out, the cash flow from it could be enough to replace my job on one deal, which is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, that is.
And the skin in the game is not that bad. Like we were talking about it. I mean, don't get me wrong, 50 grand is a decent chunk of money, but for both of us to put 50 grand in on a deal that could potentially return that every year, there's a lot more to gain than there is to lose, I suppose. You can only lose the 50 grand, especially if it's a lease, because we're buying it as a lease option, so we can't even get foreclosed on. The worst we do is lose our down payment.
Gotcha.
So pretty cool.
Gotcha. Well, those are actually all the questions I have. So
so I really appreciate you giving me a call and I guess interviewing me. So you're in the Seattle area. So what are you looking for? And by the way, when we get off this call, you're gonna have to remind me to link you up with someone. Probably one of the biggest flippers on Oahu has branched into the Seattle market a little bit.
Oh wow! Okay.
A friend of mine, we're actually partnered on a flip right now, so I'll have to link you up and maybe you can get in touch. And then when he finds a property that he's not able to close on or whatever, he can throw it your way maybe you find a deal and wholesale it to him. You never know.
Yeah, nice. All right, excellent. Well, for me right now, we've referenced the cost of and not just the cost of the properties where we live. Seattle being it's just now been overtaken, but for about the last 5 years solid, it has been the fastest appreciating market, the hottest market in the U.S. Fix and flips are wholesale deals are pretty much the only way that someone in my position would have a shot at making any money. It does not make sense to buy something and try to rent it out. My girlfriend has a house that's valued about $640,000, little 2-bedroom place. She's not sure if she'd get $2,500 a month in rent for that.
Yeah.
So, however, I think I might have mentioned earlier, I did grow up in Central Florida, which is not terribly expensive. I have a father who has been a real estate broker and property manager for the last 40 years there. And so that particular market's been my focus right now. I'm actually checking out a duplex very soon down there. And so basically, right now, single family to, quadplex, keeping it residential at this point are the type of things that I'm doing and looking for. But as like you said, mentioned David Green, everything long distance real estate investing, like that's virtually my Bible at this particular point in time.
It's a good book. It's a good book. It's a good guy, and I know he's investing in Florida too. At least at some point, he seems to invest. I mean, if you read the book, you would know he invests all over the place. So who knows? But yeah, I know that he has some stuff in Florida, and I've talked to some other people, especially I don't know what part of Florida, but it's there's a couple.
I know he has some stuff in Jacksonville. I think he might actually. I think there's multiple places in Florida that actually has some stuff. I know he has some stuff in Jacksonville.
Some solid markets out there, especially for the board strategy.
Yep. Well, and Jacksonville's fantastic because it's a pretty just business wise, it's a pretty vibrant community. But then you also have the military, so you're always going to have renters, constantly going through that area. So I'm sure he's doing just fine on those properties out there.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, Curtis, I really appreciate you giving me a call. It's been fun. We'll have to stay in touch and do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
All right. Appreciate it. Have a good one.